In the vast expanse of the universe, there exists a book that takes us back to the dawn of time, to the very beginning of humanity's story. That book is Genesis, the first book of the Bible. Genesis means beginning or origin, and it is within its pages that we find the foundational narratives that have shaped our understanding of the world, of ourselves, and of our relationship with the divine. Genesis introduces us to a world untouched by sin, a world where humanity lived in perfect harmony with God and nature. It is a world of innocence and purity, but also a world of profound responsibility. In the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve were given dominion over all living creatures, but they were also given a single, seemingly simple command, not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The story of Genesis is more than just an ancient tale. It is a timeless narrative that speaks to the deepest truths of the human experience. It is a story about choice, consequence, and the ongoing struggle between good and evil. But most importantly, it is a story about the enduring love of God, a love that persists even in the face of human failure. As we delve into the third chapter of Genesis, we encounter a pivotal moment in human history, a moment that would forever alter the course of humanity and set the stage for the complexities of the world we know today. Chapter 3 of Genesis opens with a scene of tranquility. Adam and Eve are living peacefully in the Garden of Eden, surrounded by beauty and abundance. However, this idyllic existence is about to be shattered. A cunning serpent, described as the most cunning of all the animals God had made, enters the garden and approaches Eve.
Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?
The serpent begins to subtly question God's command, planting seeds of doubt in Eve's mind. Eve, drawn in by the serpent's clever manipulation, engages in conversation with the creature, a conversation that will have dire consequences. The serpent focuses on the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, the one tree from which God commanded Adam and Eve not to eat. He assures Eve that she will not die if she eats from it, directly contradicting God's warning.
For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil.
Lured by the serpent's promises of enlightenment and power, Eve succumbs to temptation. She eats the forbidden fruit and then gives some to Adam, who also eats it. In that instant, their innocence is lost, and their eyes are opened, not to the divine wisdom the serpent promised, but to their own nakedness and shame. The serpent's temptation in the Garden of Eden is a chilling reminder of the seductive nature of evil. It often whispers in our ears, disguising itself as something appealing, something that promises to fulfill our deepest desires. Just as the serpent tempted Eve with the allure of forbidden knowledge and the promise of becoming like God, so too are we constantly bombarded with temptations that appeal to our pride, our greed, and our desire for instant gratification. The serpent's tactics are subtle yet powerful. He begins by planting seeds of doubt, questioning God's motives and suggesting that he is withholding something good from his creation. This tactic is still effective today as we grapple with doubts, uncertainties, and the temptation to question God's plan for our lives. The serpent then appeals to Eve's desire for knowledge and wisdom, presenting the forbidden fruit as a gateway to a higher level of understanding. He preys on her curiosity and her longing for something more than what she already has. In a similar way, we too can be tempted to seek knowledge or experiences that are harmful or even dangerous, believing that they will bring us fulfillment. The serpent's final blow is to directly contradict God's word, assuring Eve that she will not die if she eats from the tree. He challenges God's authority and undermines his trustworthiness. In our own lives, we may encounter voices that contradict God's truth, voices that encourage us to compromise our values or to disregard his commandments. The consequences of Adam and Eve's disobedience were swift and severe. Their eyes were opened, but not in the way they had imagined. Instead of gaining divine wisdom, they became aware of their nakedness and felt shame for the first time. Their relationship with God was fractured, and the harmony of the garden was broken. When God confronted them, Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent, revealing the blame-shifting and lack of accountability that often accompanies sin.
I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you.
This curse introduced pain and hardship into the natural process of childbirth, and foreshadowed the power struggles and inequalities that would plague human relationships.
Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it all the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you, and you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground, since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return.
With this curse, God introduced toil and hardship into work, transforming it from a joyful act of creation into a struggle for survival. Finally, God banished Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, barring them from the tree of life. This separation from God's presence and the source of eternal life was the ultimate consequence of their sin. Echoes of Eden, the fall, in our world today. Though the story of Adam and Eve may seem like an ancient tale, its themes resonate powerfully in our modern world. The consequences of their disobedience echo through the ages, reminding us of the pervasive nature of sin and its impact on our lives and relationships. We see the echoes of Eden in the brokenness of our world, in the violence, injustice, and suffering that plague humanity. We experience the consequences of sin in our own lives, in our broken relationships, our selfish desires, and our struggle with temptation. The serpent's tactics of temptation are as relevant today as they were in the garden. We are constantly bombarded with messages that appeal to our pride, our greed, and our desire for instant gratification. Like Eve, we are tempted to question God's goodness, to seek fulfillment in forbidden places, and to believe that we know better than our Creator. The consequences of sin, too, are still palpable in our lives. We experience pain, suffering, and brokenness as a result of our own choices and the choices of others. We feel the weight of shame and guilt, and the sting of separation from God and from one another. The search for redemption. A glimmer of hope. Despite the bleakness of the fall, the story of Genesis chapter 3 doesn't end in utter despair. Even in the midst of judgment, there is a glimmer of hope. God, in his infinite mercy, does not abandon humanity to its fate. Instead, he provides a promise, a glimmer of hope for redemption. After cursing the serpent, God says, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head and you will strike his heel." This cryptic statement, known as the Proto-Evangelium or First Gospel, hints at a future deliverer, one who will come from the lineage of Eve to defeat the serpent and undo the curse of sin. This promise of a Redeemer points to God's unwavering love for humanity, a love that persists even in the face of our rebellion and disobedience. It is a love that seeks to restore what has been broken, to heal the wounds of sin, and to offer us a path back to relationship with Him. The story of the fall is not just a story of despair, it is also a story of hope. It reminds us that even in our brokenness, even in our sinfulness, we are not beyond the reach of God's love and grace. The power of choice. Lessons from the garden. The story of Adam and Eve highlights the profound power of choice. In the Garden of Eden, humanity was presented with a clear choice: to obey God and enjoy the blessings of obedience, or to disobey Him and face the consequences of sin. Adam and Eve's decision to disobey God had far-reaching consequences, not only for themselves, but for all of humanity. Their choice demonstrates the ripple effect of our actions, how our decisions can impact not only our own lives, but also the lives of generations to come. The story of the fall reminds us that we are not passive bystanders in the drama of life. We are active participants, and our choices have real and lasting consequences. We have the freedom to choose to follow God's path or to forge our own way, but we must be prepared to accept the consequences of our decisions. Every day, we are faced with choices, some big and some small, that will shape the course of our lives. We can choose to walk in obedience to God, seeking his will and striving to live according to his ways. Or we can choose to go our own way, pursuing our own desires and ignoring his guidance. Facing our imperfections, embracing our humanity. The story of Adam and Eve is a stark reminder of our shared humanity, our inherent flaws and our capacity for both good and evil. It teaches us that we are not perfect beings, that we are prone to temptation and capable of making mistakes. Rather than shying away from this reality, we can embrace our humanity, acknowledging our weaknesses and seeking God's grace to overcome them. The fall does not define us. It is our response to our imperfections that truly shapes our character. We can choose to wallow in shame and guilt, allowing our mistakes to define us, or we can choose to learn from our failures, seeking God's forgiveness and striving to make amends for our wrongs. The story of the fall invites us to approach God with humility, acknowledging our need for his grace and mercy. It is in our brokenness that we can experience the fullness of God's love and the transformative power of his grace. When we acknowledge our imperfections, we open ourselves up to the possibility of change, of growth, and of becoming more like the people God created us to be. The enduring legacy Genesis 3 and its impact. The story of the fall of man has had a profound and enduring impact on Western civilization, shaping our understanding of ourselves, our world, and our relationship with God. It has inspired countless works of art, literature, and music, and its themes continue to resonate in our cultural narratives and philosophical debates. The concepts of sin, guilt, and redemption, central to Christian theology, find their roots in the Garden of Eden. The fall serves as a starting point for understanding the human condition and the need for salvation. The story of Adam and Eve has also influenced our understanding of gender roles and relationships. The curse on Eve, which introduced pain into childbirth and established a hierarchy within marriage, has been interpreted in various ways throughout history, often used to justify the subordination of women. Despite its complexities and the challenges of interpretation, the story of Genesis 3 remains a foundational text for understanding the human experience. It speaks to our deepest longings, our greatest fears, and our ongoing struggle with good and evil. A timeless tale relevance for the modern age. In our modern world, often characterized by scientific advancement and a rejection of traditional religious beliefs, the story of the fall of man may seem like an outdated myth. However, its themes of temptation, choice, and consequence remain as relevant as ever. We live in a world saturated with information and bombarded with messages that appeal to our base desires. The internet, social media, and advertising constantly tempt us with instant gratification, promising fulfillment through material possessions, fleeting pleasures, and the pursuit of power and status. The story of Adam and Eve serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us to be discerning about the voices we listen to and the choices we make. It encourages us to seek wisdom, to prioritize our relationship with God, and to resist the allure of instant gratification in favor of lasting fulfillment. The fall of man is not just an ancient story, it is a timeless tale that speaks to the core of the human experience. It is a story about choice, consequence, and the enduring love of God, a love that pursues us even in our brokenness and offers us the hope of redemption. As we navigate the complexities of the modern world, let us remember the lessons of the Garden of Eden, choosing to walk in obedience to God, seeking His wisdom and striving to live lives that reflect His love and grace.